Hello and welcome to the Winners of Sheffield podcast. I'm James Travis, also known as Trav.
And I'm Ian Robb, also known as Robbo. So James approached me about a month ago with the idea of the Winners of Sheffield podcast. James, how did that come about?
So I've been in recruitment for about a decade, and obviously a large part of that is talking to people, hearing their stories. You get to meet people at various networking events and hear their stories. And I've always wanted to get involved with something that allowed me to not just talk business, but maybe find out deeper about their stories and then try and share it with the wider community.
So obviously, what is the aim of the podcast and how will it come across and what we're looking to gain from it?
So the main aim is to celebrate local people from Sheffield or the South Yorkshire region. Really, some of these people might be successful football stars, they might be boxers, they might be business people, but it's really about finding out where they came from, how they got to where they are now, what's next for them, and hopefully that will inspire the next generation of budding, sort of, be it sports stars, business people.
There's a growing market, as we all know, of podcasts, and people have got different podcasts about all kinds of different subjects. What's going to make this podcast get people interested and make it stand out for the people of Sheffield?
Well, I mean, when you've got Stephen Bartlett and people like that who've got millions of followers and everyone's vying for people's attention, I'm sure that we aren't going to be on that sort of level, but likewise we're talking to local people, local successful businesses, giving them a platform to tell people of Sheffield what their business is and how it's how they manage to get success. So hopefully people who are interested in uplifting the local community of Sheffield will sort of plug in and help spike their interest.
Starting up a podcast from scratch, you have to get obviously people interested, and there's a lot that goes into it. How's the preparation going so far?
Well, it's a zero budget podcast. We're doing it with mobile phones. We've not got money to pump into it. I was a bit unsure as to whether that was going to work. I mean, when I told a good friend of mine that I was doing a podcast, he said, "Great, what studio are you using?" And I said, "Well, there's no studio, it's going to be on location," and I think he dampened his enthusiasm for it coming out. But I actually spoke yesterday with a podcaster, a local podcaster called James Marriott. He really liked the idea, and he gave me some words of comfort that actually he's worked with people that have got a big budget with podcasts, but actually you don't need a big budget, and it's all about the content ultimately. He sort of said, don't worry about the sound, the picture. It's ultimately about who you're meeting and the stories they've got to share.
And also looking forward, where would you like to take the podcast? How, say we're sat here a year on, where would you like the podcast to grow and how it expand to and reach different people? Would you like to stick to Sheffield or expand it to other areas?
Well, I think to a certain extent Sheffield is a bubbling pot of success, business-wise, culture. So I've already reached out to a lot of people that I'd like to have on the show. A lot of those people are already coming back. Our second guest is going to be Dame Julie Kenny. I did think it might take us a few weeks and months to get people like that onto the show. So again, that's a business lady that I've known of for the last 10 years. I never actually had the opportunity to meet her. So when I reached out to her and she came back and said that she'd like to be on the show, I was stoked. Again, I've reached out to Glyn Rhodes. Glyn Rhodes is going to join us for an episode in a couple of weeks' time. Again, I have actually met Glyn and I've heard Glyn publicly speaking. So, but I'm really interested in sitting down with him and finding out more about his history and how he got to where he's at now. With regards to where we go from here, I think it's always going to be about Sheffield and the the South Yorkshire region. So, but I suppose if in 12 months' time we can be sat down and we've got Jamie Vardy in front of us, I think at that point we know that we've. In my opinion, the best Premier League signing him all time pound for pound, although he got signed before they reached the Premier League. So I've already reached out to his people. Whether he agrees to be on the show, I'm not sure, but that's the first 12-month goal, is to get Mr. Vardy on. So
obviously there's the nets out there, the wider nets there, but in the meantime, short-term goals for the podcast.
Well, as I say, what has blown me away a little bit is the how keen people are to be on the show. I guess it's always easy to get people to come on and tell us, about their successes. So I think actually that's been a little bit easier than I expected. I suppose the goal is to get people out there interested in the material, tuning in. At the moment, whilst I've had a lot of positive reactions to what we've put out on social media, it is a little bit bit of a slow burn. But again, I spoke to James Marshall, the podcaster, yesterday, and he sort of said, ultimately, you are still trying to sell something, and at the moment, we don't actually have anything to sell. It's more a concept. So another piece of advice that he gave me was, don't hoard episodes back, get them out as soon as possible, maybe publicise them down the line. But again, we're going to be doing this as a side hustle whilst we've got day jobs.
So James, on the back of that then, you're currently talking, you had the idea, you came up with the idea yourself. Why did you get me involved?
Well, as someone who's doesn't like the sound of his own voice and got a nervous cough a lot of the time, I thought I'd get somebody who was a little bit more confident. I'd seen you on a couple of Everton phone-ins that you've done. Was really impressed with that, and I thought actually I can sort of do all the editing, production, and sort of be involved in the interviews. But I think you were a stronger person to sort of hold the conversation and present it.
Yeah,
so.
It's a tough thing being in front of the camera. I guess I've gained a bit from that, but I must admit when I first did it, I think the video shows I was nervous, my legs were joggling and all that. So you can get used to it, but it takes time. Bear with us on that. But
well, again, just to kind of name drop James Marshall for the third time. Again, I spoke to him yesterday, and I basically said, is it a flawed idea being a podcaster when you can't stand the sound of your own voice? And he reassured me that actually, people that worked in radio for a long time all have. Not all, I'm sure some people love the sound of their own voice, but by and large, nobody really likes listening to their own voice. So he said it's pretty normal, and you'll get over it once you start putting the material out. So
with your voice and also your looks, I can't stand the way I look on camera, but there we go. But as we said, a podcast, when you release it, start from scratch. People need to know and grow the audience and market. How they're going to do it, where they can watch it. Do you want to explain to the people watching this how they're going to be able to watch or listen to the podcasts that are coming up?
Yeah, so I started off with a Instagram page. So everything that we do will be sort of shared on Instagram, which I will then share on my personal Facebook. But Instagram, set up a YouTube page, which again we'll share all of the actual podcasts on there. The audio will then be put onto Spotify. We got a LinkedIn page, and I've just created a website for it today. So by and large, whatever and TikTok as well. I mean, again, I'm not sure that TikTok's necessarily going to be the right platform, but the mentality was cover all bases, and then over time we'll sort of realise what's going to be the best, or the ones that we keep, the ones that we drop. So.
Definitely. Well, thanks, James. Thanks for giving us the full picture of the Winners of Sheffield podcast. Guys, it's going to be starting, first one's coming out the 20th of November. We're just giving you a brief insight to how it started, what's it going to be about. Please like, subscribe, follow the channel, and hopefully we'll provide some top content for yourselves and get out there and you can enjoy it. Keep spreading the word, enjoy, and thanks for watching.
Get out there.
You know what I mean. The Winners of Sheffield podcast. Like, subscribe, contact and follow us. YouTube at Winners of Sheffield podcast, Instagram Winners of Chef Pod, TikTok Winners of Chef podcast, and email us at winnersofchefpodcast
@gmail.com.